Chapter. Everyone has heard of the term drop set, knows what it means, and has likely used a drop set at least once in the gym before. Drop sets can be done in a few different ways, but the most common method that most of us are used to is where you're going to find a weight you'll do for like 6 to 12 reps, do as many reps as you possibly can, then you will lighten the weight, and then just do a whole, pretty much another set, and just do as many reps as you possibly can. The main purpose of that drop set, and pretty much every drop set, besides being really fun and giving you a juicy pump, is to extend the amount of work that the muscle you're trying to train does within a given set. And the drop set that I'll be presenting in this video aims to extend the amount of work done by that target muscles, but it's not necessarily in the way of dropping weight as you might be used to, but rather fatiguing opposing shortened and lengthened muscle lengths. I'm going to be terming this drop set a squeeze stretch drop set. This drop set stems from ideas from N1 Education, so I must give credit to where credit is due. And the purpose of this video is to put this idea in a digestible manner and just to spread the good word of how fun and effective and brutal this drop set can be. The name squeeze stretch, it's going to insinuate what's to come as you follow the protocol for this drop set. So for the first squeeze part of the set, you're going to be focused on the squeeze, holding a full 1 to 2 second squeeze at that top part of each rep, focusing on that shortened muscle length. And then the second stretch part of the set is focused on the stretch, doing a 3 to 4 second slow eccentric, maybe even adding a pause at the bottom where we're working that lengthened muscle length. And in order to execute this drop set properly, the first and foremost most important part is the machine, movement, exercise, whatever you're doing. For each part of the set, it has to make sense and correlate with the goal for each part of this drop set. So for the squeeze portion, the goal is to fatigue the squeeze or the shortened muscle length of the target muscle. So the exercise you're doing has to be hardest in that squeeze. And I'm going to let some examples roll through as I talk through this. So during the squeeze part of this drop set, we're going to look to find a weight that you can do 6 to 8, maybe 10 to 12 reps, where you're going to be able to hold that squeeze for a full 1 to 2 seconds. And that is very important because as per the goal of the squeeze portion, we're looking to fatigue just the shortened muscle length. So we're going to just do reps where you can hold that squeeze in that shortened position. So make sure that you are stopping once you can't hold that squeeze and save your energy in that train to failure mentality intensity for the stretch portion of this drop set. The easiest way to follow this drop set is with Prime or Strive equipment that where you'll see them, they'll either have a cam with a lever that you can pull that will rotate the cam, or you're going to have 3 different pins that you can load weight onto. These machines are perfect for this drop set because they give you the ability to manipulate the resistance profile and pick whether the squeeze is going to be the hardest, the stretch will be the hardest, or pretty much anywhere in between. If you don't have access to these machines, don't worry, you can implement this with basic gym equipment as well, but I'm going to get to that later on in this video. For these Strive or Prime machines, if you have the cam that rotates with the lever, you want to start the squeeze set with it at setting number 2, or we're going to load the weight onto pin number 2, and the pins should be labeled. But if they're not labeled, it's going to be that bottom pin. And what this will do is make each rep hardest in that squeeze, challenging that shortened muscle length. And there's really not going to be much for resistance at the bottom, so this works perfectly. So during the squeeze set, you're holding the squeeze for a full 1 to 2 second count and doing as many of those as you can. And then once we get to the point you can't hold that squeeze, you're going to either pull that lever, so the setting on the cam is now at number 3, or you're going to take the weight from pin 2 and load it onto pin number 3. Which is going to make your reps now easy at the top, but now as you get down into that length of muscle length during the eccentric, that's where it's going to be really heavy. And then if you were using the plate-loaded machines for bigger muscle groups, like the quads, the chest, or the back, you're going to want to put some weight onto that middle pin. But for smaller muscle groups, you can just do pin 2 and pin 3. And now once you get to the stretch portion of this set, this is where the intensity picks up, and you want that like balls to the wall, failure set, Tom Platz, just psycho mentality. Granted, you want to stay in control and making sure you're doing a nice slow eccentric, maybe even adding a pause at the bottom. But this portion, the stretch set, is where you're going to do as many reps as you possibly can until your heart is fulfilled. And for this stretch set, you want to end up anywhere in like the 6 to 12 rep range. And you should be able to use the same weight from the squeeze set or the stretch set for these Strive or Prime machines. And if that's not the case, if you're falling out of that rep range, you can just either add weight or remove weight as necessary. For those of you who are going to be using more basic gym equipment, we're going to have to be a lot pickier with your exercise selection because we need to make sure the resistance profile of this exercise correlates with the goal of this stretch part of the drop set. And the goal for the stretch part of the drop set is to fatigue, I guess more so annihilate that lengthened muscle length. So we need to make sure that the exercise we are doing has to be hardest in that stretch position. And I found this drop set easier to implement for your arms. As for the biceps, you can transition from a dumbbell spider curl to an incline dumbbell curl relatively easily. You can put the pulley up high for a cable, do an overhead cable curl, move the pulley down, and then transition to an incline cable curl fairly easily. For triceps, you can do a dumbbell kickback and then transition to an overhead extension. Or you can just use a standard cable, put the pulley up high, do an extension, and then move the pulley down low, and then do an overhead extension. All of these options can also be done 1 or 2 arms at a time, depending on the equipment that you have available to you. For the side delts, using dumbbells or the squeeze set, just grab a relatively light set of dumbbells, and that's where you're going to do the squeeze set. And then when you get to the stretch set, you maybe double the weight, and now you're going to do partials down at the bottom, focusing on more of that like lengthened muscle length. For your quads, you can use a leg extension machine for the squeeze set, and then transition to sissy squats for the stretch set. This one sucks, I can confirm. For the hamstrings, you can use a leg curl for the squeeze set, and then transition to an RDL, whether that's dumbbells, Smith machine, cables, whatever's next to you. That one also sucks. The chest and the back for this was a little bit more challenging for me to find good exercises for more like basic gym equipment. But what I came up for with the chest is just to do a standard cable fly for that squeeze set. And then for the stretch set, you're going to transition into push-ups. And if you want to make them really, really tough, do a deficit push-up. And you just got to try it. It was pretty good. Quick interjection. This is me like 4 days after recording the original video. And in the video, I say that I didn't have much for the chest or back exercises. I lied. There has been a drop set for this I've been using for my back. It might be one of the most I've used out of all of these, and I have no idea how I forgot to include it in the video. I recorded all the gym stuff. I just didn't put it in the script. I don't know where it went. So the way that this works, for this machine specifically at Evolution Fitness, it's a power lift plate-loaded row, but the more common piece of equipment you will see in a gym is a hammer strength plate-loaded row. And how this drop set will work is you're going to do the squeeze set just in a normal seated position on either of these machines. And then for the stretch set, you're going to take one big step backwards and you're going to kneel. You're going to want to make sure that you're bracing hard into the pad of both machines. And then this will be where you do that stretch set, where when you're in that squeeze, it's basically going to feel like there's no weight at all. But as you extend the arm and you're doing that stretch portion, that's where the rep is going to pick up in intensity a shit ton. And this, I think, is one of the more effective options out of all of these I've included in this video. That is all. As for progressing this drop set, I would look to make sure that you're prioritizing improving your performance on the stretch part of the set first. And how you can do this is by just progressing in reps first, so trying to do more reps with the same weight. Once you reach your rep range goal, then you can increase the weight. And then a few other ways you can progress the stretch set is to either do a longer eccentric or a longer pause in that stretch. Progression on the squeeze set can still happen, and it'll probably be a little bit more intuitive as like if you reach your target rep range, granted, you're holding the squeeze for a full 1 to 2 seconds throughout that entire set, then you can try and go up and weight. Just make sure that you're not taking that squeeze set like to failure doing partials, but you're only doing it as long as you can maintain that solid hold up at the top holding the squeeze. In conclusion, do not take this drop set as some sort of be-all, end-all secret magic trick for gains. It is pretty good and I like it, but it doesn't replace your bread and butter compound movements like good old-fashioned chest press, row, pull down, squat, RDL. That's like, those are the ones where you do your straight sets, that gets you big and strong. Whereas these can be more of a tool to add into your programming for a training phase along with those bread and butter movements. And just like anything else, you're just going to train the hell out of it and continue to do them as long as you can see progression.